Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. Swiping on Tinder always felt a bit silly, but my friend Zach convinced me to give it a real try after my last relationship ended. To my surprise, I hit it off messaging with Olivia right away. Her profile showed a down-to-earth middle school teacher who shared my love of indie movies and hiking. After a week of non-stop witty banter and flirty jokes, I worked up the nerve to suggest meeting up for coffee downtown. Olivia said she'd prefer something more private and offered to text her address so I could pick her up Saturday afternoon. A bit forward maybe, but I appreciated a confident woman and started prepping a charming movie-themed mixed CD for the car. That Saturday morning, I probably changed outfits 3 times, hoping to make a good first impression on Olivia. Zach teased me via text, shocked to see me putting such effort towards an online dating match. But our messaging chemistry truly excited me in a way no app connection had prior. Humming along to the custom romantic comedy soundtrack I curated, I pulled up outside a small bungalow-style house matching Olivia's texted address. I did a quick breath check and pocket pat down before heading up the front walk, noting the place looked pretty dark inside for mid-afternoon. Chalking it up to heavy curtains or something, I knocked briskly on the red door, feeling my earlier confidence wane slightly. After a lengthy pause with no discernible interior movement, I heard the knob turn slowly. Still no Olivia appeared when the door cracked open, but a gruff male voice told me to come inside and have a seat. Alarm sounded faintly as I took tentative steps into the shadowy front room. Before I could inquire about Olivia, the guy emerged from the gloom with another larger man close behind him. With dawning horror, I realized both wore makeshift masks and wielded weapons crudely fashioned from duct tape and kitchen knives. My shocked brain fumbled for logic as the first guy gestured aggressively for me to hand over my wallet. When I hesitated, still processing the surreal trap, the larger brute forcefully kicked my knees out from under me. Sprawled helplessly on stained carpet, my mental haze cleared instantly. The smaller intruder rifled ruthlessly through my pockets as waves of humiliation and fury crashed over me. My fake date Olivia had clearly orchestrated this entire ambush, luring stupidly eager me straight into a ruthless robbery. Fists clenched tightly against creeping despair, I bit back angry tears, realizing I had ignored all warning signs in my quest for connection. With my emptied wallet and keys now confiscated, irrational desperation flooded my system. As the brutish thieves debated what to steal from my sightline-visible car next, some primal survival instinct awoke within me. In one swift move, I swept my leg hard, directly connecting with the nearest guy's ankle. As he stumbled, cursing in pain, I bolted frantically for the still cracked doorway, ignoring the outraged screams trailing me. Fueled by a volatile adrenaline surge, I sprinted down the driveway and flung myself behind the wheel of my faithful old hatchback. Tires spinning recklessly on the gravel road, I sped off blindly from the scene of violation, struggling to swallow panicked breaths. Only after several turns did I find the presence of mind to start checking the mirrors, obsessively expecting vengeful pursuit. But the winding street behind me remained mercifully empty aside from a squirrel gathering acorns. Having created some temporary distance, crashing reality set in regarding my plight. I drove aimlessly with no wallet, phone, or sense of direction, still reeling emotionally from cruel betrayal at the whim of cyber strangers. Swallowing the last bit of pride remaining, I made my way awkwardly to the nearby police station. The officer taking my statement hardly stifled her bored indifference, reciting rote questions between yawns. I recounted feeling targeted online, lured by the promise of intimacy to a compromised location far from my own turf or defenses. When I showed the offensive fake dating profile that goaded my trust as evidence, the cop just chuckled. Clearly the halls here brimmed already with countless similar tales of deception thanks to modern hookup apps. But something about my crestfallen face or quivering account of fleeing armed attackers swayed her typically jaded outlook. At the end, she patted my shoulder, gently reminding me that virtual spaces overflowed with brilliant performers and master manipulators. I clung desperately to her reassurance that even the savviest soul could prove susceptible to customized attacks on personal insecurities and secret longing. Still in utter violation and disgust, I felt with myself in aftermath nearly overwhelmed all available coping strategies. That harrowing ordeal with phony Olivia and her weapon-wielding accomplices left scars well beyond the fading bruises and temporarily frozen credit. In insomnia played weeks that passed, I analyzed endlessly all subtle conversational flags I must have missed, blinded by my own relationship hopes. I decided ultimately to abandon the peerless and triggering world of online matchmaking indefinitely. Too raw and unforgiving still, I wrongly blamed myself for ignoring common sense and safety measures in the face of likely too good to be true attention. Over painful months spent rebuilding identity and esteem, wise friends helped shift my perspective. They reminded me creeps and criminals dwelling anonymously online bore full responsibility for orchestrating calculated harm. No victim deserved even portion blame, for believing others might nurture intimacy without self-serving or sinister ulterior motives. And by sharing my haunting experience openly once wounds healed into wisdom, I might prevent other searchers from meeting similar cruel fates. Though we all craved connection at times in frustratingly disconnected modernity, I learned to seek meaning first from within before risking my spirit out among the cyber wolves hunting the vulnerable. My friends convinced me to try Tinder after a bad breakup, assuming some harmless flirting might restore my confidence. I hadn't planned on actually meeting anyone until a sweet guy named Adam caught my eye. His profile mentioned working as a mascot performer at our local theme park. Having always loved amusement parks myself, that shared interest definitely intrigued me. We started chatting and really hitting it off right away, given so much in common around creative arts and making kids smile. When Adam first suggested meeting up in person for a park date, I felt hesitant considering the safety risks of encountering strangers from the internet. But after weeks of easy conversations where he seemed totally innocuous, I started questioning my wariness. Adam often mentioned little chivalrous acts like holding doors for elderly visitors at the theme park or volunteering for children's theater in his spare time. He appeared genuine and compassionate, focused on bringing more magic and joy into the world. I also reminded myself that our date venue would be bursting with families and witnesses should anything seem amiss. And Adam eagerly emphasized planning a wholesome, almost childlike adventure full of rides, games, and surprises to delight my inner child. When he promised to bring tasty catering leftovers for a special private picnic afterwards, I finally silenced the last remaining nerves and agreed to the date. I couldn't remember the last time a guy seemed so utterly invested in creating special memories to impress me. Adam felt determined to showcase his thoughtful, attentive nature from our first meetup moment. The morning we planned to rendezvous at the park, glorious sunshine spilled across my bed as if the universe itself smiled approval over this optimism-fueled adventure. I spent extra time selecting the perfect floral sundress to complement the cheery weather and my soaring, hopeful mood. Standing before the mirror, I recalled Adam's many compliments raving about my keen wit, creative talents, and rare beauty both inside and out. He seemed almost in awe any time I revealed mundane details about myself that past partners labeled as too silly or frivolous. But Adam cherished every glimpse into my spirit and mind. After years of critical partners dampening my self-confidence, his steadfast reverence felt immensely restorative to my sense of self-worth. I actually caught myself humming happily while packing my beach tote with sunscreen, sunglasses, and other picnic date essentials. Straightening the blanket edges over the brimming basket, I smiled, fully embracing the chance to transfer our awesome emotional chemistry seamlessly from screens to reality. When I arrived at the front gates, Adam stood by the central fountain waving a homemade sign with my name in glittery letters. He greeted me exuberantly, immediately offering his arm as we navigated towards the rides. I found Adam just as guileless and charming in person, joking with toddlers waiting in lines or dramatically waving any time he caught my glance. By late afternoon, when he steered us towards the staff-only access pathway, I was fully melted under his whimsical spell. Adam led me towards a quiet indoor area, typically off limits, explaining we could wash up for our private picnic. In my dreamy state, I didn't question anything as Adam secured the door behind us and situated himself unusually close on the small bench beside me. He whispered what a rare beauty I was and how lucky he felt to be the subject of my affection. Alarm trickled in slowly as his words grew increasingly intimate and presumptuous. When his thick fingers grazed my shoulder, purposefully slipping my bra strap aside, I recoiled, instantly recognizing imminent danger. Bolting towards the exit, his imposing body blocked my escape as I screamed for help. Adam made unsettling shushing sounds, claiming no one would disrupt us in these discreet inner hallways. The predatory hunger in his eyes telegraphed clearly my identity no longer mattered, only my swiftly diminishing autonomy. As he forcefully yanked my wrist, I channeled desperation into startlingly primal violence, gouging hard towards his face and stomping ruthlessly on his instep when he loosened grip. Staggering away just long enough for me to fling the door wide, I sprinted recklessly through utility corridors praying for angels or authority. My mind reeled imagining how blatant red flags revealing violent entitlement went unnoticed, occluded by equal parts optimism and inexperience with true monsters. Skidding past staff changing rooms, I begged the first performer I found wildly for sanctuary from cruelty disguised initially convincingly as tenderness. The young girl gathered me close instantly, walking us briskly towards her supervising ranger, despite my knees nearly collapsing in relief. Her unwavering compassion buoyed me amidst fragmentation, a minor mercy suggesting goodness still dwelled in unspoiled souls. When we located her stalwart chief ranger, I recounted the episode in halting speech, repeatedly apologizing for stupidity that invited attack. The ranger appeared genuinely moved by my distress, reviewing security teams with a detailed suspect description, while shielding me protectively in a secluded office. As adrenaline seeped from my battered spirit, harsh truth crushed any lingering denial. My deepest craving for care and cherishing left me susceptible, overlooking glaring red flags and Adam's still undetected deception. Security footage ultimately confirmed his guilt as a dangerous predator exploiting employee access for perverse games. But the violation I carried felt less tied to lurid acts than that suggested I somehow deserved them. In the painfully quiet aftermath seeking understanding, I built a loving mantra for my innermost wounds. Whenever shame or blame reverberated from past echoes, I would pause to state simply, I was innocent, but now I'm wise. No further truth needed dwelling on as I nurtured grace in place of festering toxicity. And when I noticed other girls still blinded by hopeless romanticism, I made sure to share escape tips should fairy tale promises ever reveal savage fangs. My cousin Jay convinced me to try Tinder after hearing me complain yet again about the truly dismal local dating scene where I lived. I had never put much stock in finding meaningful connections on a superficial hot or not style app, but Jay persisted, saying I wouldn't know unless I gave it a real shot. He helped me set up a profile, swiping through all my best pics before crafting a lighthearted bio highlighting my love of cheesy 80s flicks, craft beers, and hiking. I completed the remaining sections half-heartedly, still skeptical that listing my job and astrological sign would manifest my dream girl. After a few days of sporadic swiping, I matched unexpectedly with a girl named May whose profile instantly intrigued me. She worked at a flower shop downtown and shared my affection for John Hughes classics and nature trails. As we started chatting, I realized we possessed effortless banter and similar tastes in humor, music, and adventures. It felt refreshing connecting so genuinely after so many lackluster Tinder conversations fizzled out over petty differences. Both of us even bonded laughing over epic first date fails we had suffered through the years before finally finding each other. Within a week or so, May started hinting coyly that we clearly needed to meet up in person sometime soon to see if our obvious chemistry continued beyond the app. I hesitated briefly, assuming she interacted so warmly with all matches as part of her customer service profession. But her confident persistence soon convinced me that our rapport truly felt rare, worthy of exploring further in a more meaningful way. We made plans to try out a new Thai restaurant the following Friday evening downtown after I completed a big work presentation. I arrived deliberately early at the cozy restaurant and slid into a quiet back corner booth facing the door so I could watch for May's arrival. Right on the dot at 7 p.m., I noticed a petite girl wander in wearing a flowery cotton dress. She peered around curiously before catching my waving hand, beckoning her over. As she approached, I stood awkwardly to give a brief side hug before we settled across the small table from each other. Up close, I realized May's photos on her profile hardly did justice to her natural beauty. With flawless makeup accentuating enchanting hazel eyes and glossy waves of honey brown hair, she radiated loveliness inside and out. We jumped easily back into the friendly banter cultivated already over text as the waiter appeared to take our drink order. I asked for a local IPA while May requested a pricey-sounding cocktail. As we browsed menus, She talked animatedly about the stresses of managing seasonal flower orders on top of bridezilla clients at the shop. I found her candor and theatrical hand gestures endearing even as she dominated the conversation a bit. When our drinks arrived, I took a slow sip of beer as May gulped half her cocktail promptly before coming up for air with a dazzling grin. She launched right back into a funny rant about the perils of floral retail between more giant sips. By the time our food arrived, May was already on her third fancy drink while I still nursed my first beer. I chalked up her rapid intoxication to an empty stomach and offered her some fried rice and lemongrass chicken wings to help absorb the alcohol. But May disregarded my gesture, flagging down the waiter for yet another cocktail before I even finished 2 bites. I started growing uneasy as she slurred on about past toxic boyfriends, loudly cursing her mother's terrible advice. Glancing anxiously around at nearby diners beginning to take note of her tipsiness, I gently suggested May ease up until getting some nourishment in her system, but she shrugged me off, insisting she felt amazing and could handle her liquor just fine. In the whirl of the next half hour, I watched helplessly as May proceeded to get utterly, publicly hammered. By the time the manager headed over with genuine concern about her disruptive state, I was utterly mortified. He hovered nearby as I forcibly cut May off from ordering anything additional than awkwardly asked for our check right away. I cringed seeing the nearly $100 bill for all of May's careless drinking on what was supposed to be my treat inviting her out. As I dug cash reluctantly from my wallet, May blinked at me in theatrical innocent confusion, having zero recollection about her outlandish behavior. My appetite for food and company now totally extinguished, I guided drunken May towards the exit, ignoring the judgmental looks burning into my back. The cool night air had zero sobering impact on May, who clung tipsily to me, begging to keep this epic party going. When I firmly declined and pried her grasping hands away, she unleashed a barrage of sloppy kisses along my neck. Horrified, I managed to flag down a roaming taxi and bundle May sloppily across the backseat. I hastily gave the amused driver her address from our Tinder chat, then waved the cab off, utterly disgusted. Standing there watching it lurch away, I felt enraged for letting an internet stranger take advantage and publicly embarrass me just because she was pretty. I knew immediately May lacked the maturity, self-awareness, or human decency to warrant ever speaking again outside app pleasantries. In the sober light of the next morning's headache, I replayed the date from hell, feeling mortified by May's behavior. My bank account also stung from the irresponsible bill she stuck me with thanks to unchecked overindulgence. I considered warning mutual connections about May for their own safety, but ultimately felt too sheepish over allowing a basic attention seeker to pull the wool so completely over my eyes. I vowed instead to trust my instincts going forward when red flags emerged early so that no other first date ended so painfully. If I learned anything from May and our disastrous meetup, it was that keeping faith in my own voice and boundaries remained the surest way to filter out toxic agendas hiding behind sweet exteriors. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.